like to welcome everyone to the Learner's Voice debate. This year at WISE, 30 learners from all around the world were selected to come and participate in the summit under the Learner's Voice program. And we are going to be sharing a little bit of our experiences here, including what we kind of came into the summit expecting, what our experiences like were during the summit, as well as our takeaways. So I'm going to, before we introduce the rest of the panel, I'm going to briefly talk about my own experiences at WISE. I'll begin by my expectations before the summit. So like I mentioned, I'm majoring in math, and math is a very, to some, it's a very factual, concrete kind of field where you always kind of know the right answers and you always have a process to go about to discover those right answers. And so actually my interest in education has kind of been somewhat confusing to me, just because I have this passion for education and I have this passion for education reform, and I do want the best for my region as well as the globe in terms of best practice and education standards. However, I don't really know how to direct that passion, and I coming into the summit, I was hoping that that uncontrolled passion in a way would become directed through my attendance at different discussions as well as different debates. So I guess my expectations were that I would find direction and I would discover what education globally needed me to do, whether it was, well, should I go into curriculum design? Should I go into teacher development? Should I go into policy? How best would I be able to contribute to global education? So those were kind of my expectations. I wanted direction. Coming to the summit and having been in the summit for the past 3 days, I did try to go to as many discussions and debates as I could. And my experience has been that I am now more confident and more aware of what is being discussed globally in the global sphere about education. I have somewhat of a foothold now as to what is out there. I know that I can kind of at least be confident that I'm on the same page as a lot of the great thinkers around the world. So I think that I've gotten a lot more perspective, and I'm not too sure if I've actually been able to answer my question of what should I do for the education cause, but I certainly have, it's shed a lot of light for me. So in terms of takeaways after the summit, I think listening to all of, I'm sure the learners will talk about this, but listening to all of the big ideas being thrown out there, and a lot of it can seem so theoretical to a student who's still in the classroom. And so I think that my biggest takeaway is that I'm going to make sure that whatever I do in my life, whatever I do in terms of education, I do want to still have that connection with real students. I still want to be in the classroom, if not a full-time teacher, at least volunteering every so often in my community, because I feel like connecting with the students is really going to make me have a solid kind of grasp and a solid pretty much a solid grasp of what's going on in the practical world and how I can translate those big, lofty ideas into practice. And so that's pretty much been WISE for me in a nutshell. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Muhammad Al-Jabri, and he will explain his experience at WISE. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is quite an honor to be one of the 30 students who came from all around the world in order to represent learners. I actually don't believe in something called a person can represent countries or nations of others. Every person has his or her own spice that is being added to this life. Before I came to this summit, I had expectations just like any other person or any other delegate. I was really excited about the idea of that I'll beat 30 new competitors of my life. But when I got here, it turned out like we had a lot of things in common. We turned out to be friends. I have been to many conferences before, and as you all know, at the end of any conference, people would leave and nothing will do anything. A lot of things will be made, a lot of policies might be advocated for, but at the end, is there an effect? Who knows? What I have seen and I have felt as a learner voice participant in this summit is quite fascinating. At the end of my first day here, I tweeted that innovation comes out of poverty and wealth. Slums in India or Brazil have very, very, very hard circumstances that make people question their living conditions and just create very amazing and creative solutions for their lives. And countries who have the resources, just like Qatar, stimulates unusual positiveness, stimulates mind, and invest in something called mindset. We have always been in places or heard on TV that investment is a term of money, but knowledge, to me, is more worth than that. What I'm going to have with me when I leave is not just the knowledge and experience or the network I will have. It is the fascinating relationship that dealt here between generations. It's always been debatable that ages have limits. However, here we do not feel that. We would approach high-profile people, asking them for interviews or just to chat with, and they will be happily welcoming our company. And that was really, really, really fascinating for me. As a learner who is leaving like tomorrow, hopefully, inshallah, we'll start a new path, or actually it's not new, a path of life, a path of contributing to education, not just as a learner, but as a young social entrepreneur who has visions and dreams in order to make a better world. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed, for that, for sharing your experiences. Certainly interesting. Now we will move over to Ivica Alpeza, and she will tell us about her experiences with WISE.
Thank you. I'm Ivica Alpeza, and I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, where in Mostar, at University of Mostar, I study economy. But here I'm as a board member of the Organizing Bureau of European School Student Unions, OBESU. As a board member of this organization, namely known as OBESU, I came here initially to see how to share, how to network, how to deal with the matters related to education. Also, I wanted to see how are students seen as are they basically seen as equal stakeholders in the education system and in education as in general, because we strongly believe that we, the students, have the equal access to education and equal say in education as all other stakeholders. But actually what happened here, we did a lot of networking within the Learner Voice program. We did a lot of sharing. We make a lot of connections within each other, which is really important. But also we discussed important topics. And which I find really important, we show how we do stuff on our own way, which means we organized workshops in recent days, which you might attend already. They were addressed on social entrepreneurship, and another was yesterday, which was addressed on advocacy. We try to show how does non-formal education functions and what are the non-formal education methods to be implemented within the learning. Why exactly non-formal education? Because there's a simpler reason lying behind it. So it gives dynamic approach to learning, also at catering for needs of various learners. Hand in hand with this goes what will I actually bring back to my home organization. As I already said, I will bring a lot of networking, new contacts, a new plan how to do stuff in a bit different way, and that they are still dealing in the field of education. But also what I'm actually going to bring home is the fact that the world is extremely big. But when it comes to challenges such as education, then becomes quite small because we are all facing it at the moment. Also, I will bring home will to continue to be engaged within the WISE and this Learners' Voice community, meaning not that we met like 30 learners from all over the globe and discussed some relevant topics to education, but actually to meet once again, even more several times, to work on concrete projects related to education and use methods that might be considered as innovative, but still helpful in a specific educational system. So I would like to conclude this with just saying future of education goes hand in hand with the purpose of education, which is to educate people for lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivica. And now we'll shift over to Mahmoud Abbas. We've saved the best for last.
Definitely. Can I just say, isn't WISE awesome? I mean, they've gathered these people from all over the world to come and discuss education here. I love WISE. I wish I could come here next time again. So, this is my first time attending WISE, and I really must admit that I had high hopes and hypes about WISE. And I must congratulate Qatar Foundation and the organizing team for pulling off such a conference really well. So some of the things that I was aspiring to see before coming to WISE was, when we were here at WISE, we get to run into a lot of politicians and public leaders and popular people. But to me, it was more interesting to meet my fellow learners and to discuss the social entrepreneurship projects that they were doing in their respective countries, because it was kind of like a platform for me and my fellow learners to share and exchange ideas and get inspired by the like-minded people that are doing projects in their respective countries. And another thing I was interested in was discovering the mindset in the Arab world. I was really intrigued and surprised when I heard that WISE was being held in Qatar. You know, Qatar being a resource-rich country, and they want to host a conference on education. I was like, what? But in the end of it all, I'm really glad that they did it, and I'm glad that Qatar is realizing that education is a really pressing issue and urgent matter that needs to be addressed. So over the past couple of days, some of you might have noticed that the Learner's Voice team has been conducting several interviews with the speakers. And some of the speakers that were interviewed include Dr. Sheikha Al-Misnad, who's the president of Qatar University. We also interviewed Sir Fazli Hassan Abed, who's the WISE Prize laureate this year. And we also interviewed Anthony Salcito, who is the Microsoft Vice President for Education. Alan Goodman, CEO of IIE, was also interviewed. Sir Michael Berber, the head of McKinsey, was interviewed. And all these interviews and much more can be found at the Learner's Voice blog. I think the address is learnersvoice.tumblr.com. So if you're interested in these videos, please go ahead and check them out. I really enjoyed some of the sessions that were prepared here, but what struck me the most were the ad hoc sessions that were organized by the Learner's Voice members, the social entrepreneurship one and the advocacy one. I especially enjoyed the advocacy session because it was really interactive and really engaging the attendance, and I believe it was one of the most fruitful sessions I attended at WISE.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that I'll take back home is a quote by Dr. Gregorian. He said that the problem with education leaders is that the problem with government leaders is that they view education as a cost and not an investment. And I think this is a really huge issue that is that is common in many countries, and we really need to encourage our leaders to change their mindset. one of the other things that I'd be interested afterwards is, all the learners who came here had various social entrepreneurship projects, and they used this platform to share their projects with experts in education, and they got some advice and refinements and probably some resources. And I'd really like to meet the learners again, or hear from them probably after 1 year and discuss with them, or just review how their projects are going on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.